and welcome back, La Liga fans. This is the Total Football Analysis La Liga podcast. I'm your host, professional soccer player Alex Compsia, joined by El Profesor Chris Mumford, Professor of Innovation. What's up, Chris?
Not much, not much. Seems like football every 3 days. What more can you ask for?
Lots and lots of football. We also got coach slash expert analyst Scott Martin in the house. What's going on, Scott?
Doing great, doing great. So as long as Real Madrid stays at the top of the table, doing great.
Yeah, he's doing great. And he's also got a new background. What a nice background there. You got Pepe and Ramos, the bruisers. I see Zinedine Zidane. You got Figo, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Bruno Fernandes, too. We got that Portuguese flair, don't you?
Supporting Portugal. So 1A, 1B. So also using my new La Decima mug. So yeah, beautiful little work there.
These are pretty good times for Portuguese football and for Real Madrid. So congrats to you, Scott. Real Madrid continue to look like they will be the team to chase this year, unless Real Sociedad has anything to say about it. Maybe Atletico Madrid. We'll have to see. Sevilla lost once again, this time to Athletic Club Bilbao 2-1. Real Madrid beat Huesca 4-1. That's back-to-back 4-1 losses for Huesca against the number 1 and number 2 teams, respectively. Atletico Madrid beat Osasuna 3-1. And finally, FC Barcelona tied 1-1 against Deportivo Alaves. This means going into the week, the table has Real Sociedad first, Real Madrid second, Atletico Madrid third, Cadiz in fourth, Granada in fifth, Villarreal in sixth, and then FC Barcelona in 12th, and Sevilla finding themselves in 16th. Yikes. So we're going to jump right into it with our Champions League recap. Let's kick things off with Atletico Madrid against Salzburg. 3-2 win there for Atletico Madrid. The game did not start off too great for the Atletico Madrid squad, with Salzburg taking the scoreline 1-0 and then 2-0. João Felix was the star there, 2 goals and an incredible bicycle kick attempt. If you guys saw that off the crossbar, was insane. He is in fantastic form. Llorente scored a great left-footed take for the first goal. But it has to be said, I think the keeper could do a little bit better there. Suarez-Felix combos looked very dangerous all night long. Sobatsale with a great goal to tie it 1-1 with the outside of his right foot. Then Lodi seemed to slip there on the left, so maybe he needs to change his cleats there. Salzburg actually took the lead 2-1 on a brilliantly worked goal. Atletico Madrid gets caught aggressively condensing the center of the field. But forget about a late run from Ulmer from the deep left back position. And Scott, I was thinking when I was watching this goal, this is the typical way you'd want to play against Atletico Madrid squad that likes to keep things so compact centrally, and they might forget about a late run like Ulmer going through and causes that, ball over the top, and he's eliminated everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if that run is coming from one of the 2 half spaces or possibly even further out wide. That's a really tough run to track, and Atletico doesn't necessarily do a great job in finding that runner. So they do tend to funnel a lot of their play out wide, as they do. So that's where teams can catch them out. And so if you can, either make that late run from the wings or pull them out of the middle, you do some damage against this side, especially without Thomas Partey to cover the middle.
Absolutely. And Thomas Partey seems to be quite a loss for Atletico. They have turned things around and they're looking a lot better now. Jesse Marsch was pumped after that goal for Salzburg, but Felix tied it up 2-2 on an incredible move from Atletico's attack. Once again, Suarez and Felix combining early, then Felix slips in Correa, who looks to be in decent form. Then Correa slips it back to Felix for the tap-in. Great goal. Oblak Chris looked fantastic all night long, as he has in La Liga and Champions League. He seems, for me now, to be perhaps, I agree with you, maybe the number 1 keeper in Spain. Although I think Courtois is still challenging there. And then we haven't even talked about Ter Stegen. I don't know. Is Oblak still number 1?
I think as far as I'm concerned, heck yeah, he is. I will say Courtois, your point's spot on. I mean, he seems to have gotten to be exactly what you'd want out of a keeper is you don't want any surprises, right? And occasionally you have some real brilliance. Oblak just happens to bring a lot more brilliance in, and I happen to like his distribution more. And poor Ter Stegen, it's hard to save shots if you're sitting on the bench injured and distribution wise. So, we will talk a little bit about Neto and kind of some of the challenges with footwork he's had. But I think now is fair to say that Oblak is the cream of the crop, not only of Spain, but potentially a contender for all of Europe.
Exactly. Well said, Chris. And they have the hero at the back with Oblak, but they also have the hero up top lately, the young Felix. He was the hero with the late winner. In reality, though, he could have probably had 5 goals in this game, and that's really not an exaggeration with the amount of chances he created and also Atletico Madrid created for him. But he puts away the last one, and Atletico Madrid get all 3 points. Let's transition over to a really tough matchup between Real Madrid versus Gladback. Score tied 2-2. Madrid with 66% possession and 22 total shots. Scott, why didn't they smash this team in Gladback with those stats?
You would think those stats would lend themselves towards a pretty one-sided affair, but what we really saw was a very stagnant Real Madrid team. For some reason, there's this little bit of a disconnect right now that they're not playing a massive team like a Barcelona. There is that little bit of a let-off. It's I'm not sure whether to pin this exclusively tactics or if it's really the players who bear that responsibility for a number of really poor performances since coming back from the international window. So Zidane being the flow of the team, but yeah, the performance on the pitch is just not. So we have seen in the past couple games that Zidane has looked to press high up the pitch with a 4-1-4-1 right now. So I don't know if you guys saw that, but as Casemiro eventually left that pivot spot to go press higher at the pitch, there were just massive gaps emerging right in the middle of the pitch. And with a couple of simple passes, the high press was broken and Real Madrid was forced into recovery defense. So, I mean, Alex, you can probably comment on this really well from your perspective as a center back. I mean, that's got to be really frustrating for those center backs to see not only their linchpin, Casemiro, but the whole midfield bypassed so easily.
Well, yeah, it makes you extremely vulnerable. It's almost like those 4v3 or 5v4 drills you play in training where there's no midfielders at all, and all you have is the back line just shifting and trying to cover that space. If you overstep, which at times lately Ramos has been doing, he's been overstepping just a little bit too much, and you notice when Casemiro's not there to cover him that he can actually get exposed. For all the praises that we sing in terms of Ramos, and he deserves them at the end, especially with winning that header for Casemiro to knock in for the win, for the tying goal. He does look like at times he makes perhaps decisions that could really cost this Real Madrid defense, but he more than makes up for it clearly on the offensive side and for the majority of the part on the defensive side as well, and with his leadership too. I still think Varane is a shadow of the player right now that he could be. It doesn't seem like he's playing with a ton of confidence. I am really not sure why. Thuram, we talked about Thuram last week a little bit going into this game. He had a massive impact on the game. Talked about in the preview last week, of course, the son of the legendary French World Cup winning defender. He's really making a name for himself as a young player and as an attacking player. 1-0 Gladback with an incredibly worked goal. They seem like they just picked apart, like you said, Scott, that Madrid midfield and even that defense. Kroos loses possession early, and then the incredible pass through the legs of Varane to find Thuram for a really nice left foot finish. Is there anything there you thought, besides the Kroos giveaway, that Madrid could have done better on that goal, or was it just really well worked?
I think you've got to tip your hat to Gladback. That was a really well worked goal. The pass, come on, was brilliant. Lucas Vasquez was there. He was pretty tight, but the pass was just perfect. So not he could have done. It's really, I think, the play right before the initial move to goal that
Right.
set them back. And that's where they've been sloppy.
Right. And Chris, 2-0, Mönchengladbach take the lead surprisingly. Thuram really putting in an easy tap, and it has to be said. But my thought process when I saw the initial shot go into Courtois and he plays it right into Thuram's feet, I thought that Courtois could have done a better job in that situation. Am I being unfair?
I think anytime a keeper doesn't hold on to a ball, questions can be asked. So, yeah, I do think there's um, that's why handling has become more and more important, and the bar is so much higher. So you either want to parry it 20 or 30 yards out to the left or right, or parry it over the inline, or you want to secure it with your hands. That's
Right.
probably how I take a look at it.
Right, but I agree. If it's coming close to your stomach,
Mhm.
is the idea that, first things first, if you can catch it and hold on to it, fantastic. But if it is coming too close to the stomach and it's almost like an awkward position for you to punch it out wide, what's really the technique then if the shot's just coming there? Is it just
It's
stop the
it's
ball and that's it?
it's called the Oshiat technique, where you just you're just trying to use any part of your body to keep the ball out of the net. I mean, yes, that is an anatomically compromised area to really be able to use one's hands, but I think one of the things that I want to give credit to the modern goalkeeper on is the amount of movement on these balls versus back in the old days.
True.
It's almost like they designed these things to go knuckleball on you. So yeah, I think a eyebrow can be raised, but I don't know if questions should be asked.
Good point. And, Courtois did come up with a fantastic 1v1 save right after. Mönchengladbach could have taken the lead 3-0.
Yeah.
And he comes in clutch, right after that goal. And it really has to be said, too, that I thought the Madrid spirit, after they went down 2-0, was pretty good. They believed that they were going to come back into this game, and they really did. Madrid get one back through Benzema. Really dangerous and great play from Valverde, though, to come in from the right side and then push it out. And it seems like he has a fantastic delivery with his right foot. Great backwood post header from Casemiro. And then Casemiro at the death with the finish. Modric crosses, Ramos header, knocks it down for a tap. And just like Zidane drew it up, right, Scott?
Of course, I'm sure he had that one planned. But I mean, to your point, like Modric, mentioning him, that's a really big point. When he came in, the game changed. So I'm not entirely sure why Kroos wasn't able to dictate tempo a little bit more effectively in this match. But it did seem that every time he got the ball, he was slowing the game down. That there really wasn't any sense of urgency with the squad.
Right.
So when Modric came in, he pushed the pace a little bit. And we started to see that Real Madrid they clawed their way back in. They had a little bit of urgency, and with that change of pace, I think that's where the mindset shift really came in. So they needed something to mix the game up, and Zidane got his subs right. Credit to him on this one.
Couple performance really well put too, and couple performances I want to highlight too is, what do you make of Lucas Vasquez? I know we talked about him last week at that right back position. Him filling in again. Do you think that's something that will remain? Does he provide more than Nacho?
For now, I think he does have to be there. Maybe if it's a game where you're going up against a more threatening attacking side, you put in Nacho, have him stay at home, and then use Mendy a little higher up the pitch, or even use Marcelo, put him in, and limit his defensive responsibilities. But I think, especially in La Liga play, as they are expected to really have the ball and dominate these mid to lower tier teams in the league, they probably benefit from having Lucas Vasquez on that side, just because you do get the double-edged sword with his attacking contribution. So I would look for him to stay at right back until Carvajal can come back.
Right.
I
And
do. Go ahead.
go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I just want to kind of give ourselves a high five. Last week we talked about System versus Galactico, and we did raise the alarm on this match, right? That something could go awry here, and guess what? It did. And you know, I think the System fully tested much superior talent, and I think Madristas should probably be pleased with walking out of there with 1 point, even though they're fourth in Group B out of 6 possible points taken. So I just, again, that hypothesis, I think in La Liga, they're going to just be able to roll over teams. There may be a couple of speed bumps, but when it comes to Champions League, it's going to be really interesting.
Agreed. And one performance too that I thought was quite good was Marcos Asensio. You know, coming in, I thought he looked very dangerous and more fluid. There's a couple of good runs and even a really well taken shot. I think we're starting to see the beginning of a really fluid front three, and I don't mean that just in the sense of there's going to be a significant three that they're going to hold on to. Whoever he's subbing on, maybe if they all find their form at the same time, that's the way Real Madrid is going to move forward. I mean, Scott, we also saw Eden Hazard finally come back. Looks like he's finally somewhat fit. I don't know if he's fully fit, but in La Liga he seemed good. And we'll talk about that coming up too. But what do you make of Hazard back?
So Hazard coming out of the pitch, even though he didn't make a massive individual contribution in this game, you just see he demands so much attention from the opponent that it gives a little bit of extra freedom to everyone else. So, especially in that game where he replaced Vinicius Jr., who, if you ask Benzema, he was playing against Real Madrid in that game. So I'm sure everyone's aware of that controversy at halftime. But, Hazard, I think he simplifies the game a little bit. He's a little bit more selective in the attacking routes he chooses to take. And he just combines better with Benzema. So, yeah, just his presence on the pitch made a big difference in that game. And, like you said, we'll talk about it later. He was a difference maker over the weekend.
Absolutely. And I want to briefly touch on Sevilla and transitioning here before we go into the really big game against Barca against Juventus. So Sevilla beat Rennes 1-0. Really important win for a struggling team, right, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a Sevilla team that just simply can't buy luck by a break in La Liga, but they've played really well in Champions League. They got the 0-0 draw against Chelsea, and they followed it up with a 1-0 win against Rennes. And you look at it, it seems like a pretty close affair, but when you really take a deep dive into this match, the way it was played, Sevilla really could have come out into 2 shots on goal, both half chances at best, and they pinned Rennes. That they really only had the long balls to the forwards and to Doku on the right. So Sevilla's their long diagonal distributions, and credit to Koundé. Koundé's long balls in this game, his long diagonals were spot on. So he was especially effective with the long, 50-yard switch to Marcos Acuna on that left-hand side. And Acuna was dangerous. So, overall, I think Sevilla will probably be a little disappointed that they didn't, maybe rack up a little bit more momentum, put some more balls in the back of the net. But when you look at the overall performance, this was as dominant as you get.
Absolutely. And now Barca Juventus 2-0 win for Barcelona. Chris, did you expect that?
Well, I didn't know what to expect just because of the injuries and the COVID on particularly on Juventus. I wasn't sure necessarily who they were going to field. Obviously, Ronaldo. When he gets back on the pitch, of course, you guys probably know this weekend he scored 2 goals in his return game. So I think that's a proverbial dodging of the bullet. Barca, as we all know, needed this so badly, so badly. So it's going to be. That's just that the group plays outcomes are going to be really fascinating in as we move forward.
Right, and I thought particularly, you know, I think it has to be said, Juve were poor. We talked about how, at least I talked about last week, about how Pirlo would approach this game. That was a really big question. And I think it has to be said that I think he got it wrong. I don't understand why it was so easy for Barcelona to penetrate through the middle and centrally, because that is, where they're at their best. I don't understand why they gave Messi so much space. And, Messi was the man of the match, but I didn't think that Juve's tactics and the way they played against him helped their case whatsoever. And in particular, the gaps between the lines that Barca were finding, more particular Messi, Griezmann, Pedri was outstanding. I thought he had a potentially man of the match performance, if not for Messi's amazing performance. And the first goal, Dembele, has to be said. He gets fortunate with a deflection. There's nothing that Szczesny can do there, Chris. But if you don't shoot, you don't score. I guess that's the saying, right? But he does have a nice chop. He comes in from the left-hand side, and it's a decent strike. I don't think it would have phased Szczesny whatsoever. But it has to be said, there's nothing that he can do, on that deflection. All of a sudden, Barca's up 1-0, and yeah, Araujo had to come off. This is the weird part for me. Araujo had to come off at halftime from center back. And what does Koeman do? He goes and puts De Jong as a center back. What do you guys make of that decision?
Yeah, it was a bizarre decision, but given the lack of depth at center back right now, it worked out. For the most part, Barcelona was able to hold Juventus to pretty direct play. They made play pretty predictable for the center backs. So, you don't want to play De Jong there, but for a fill-in, that's not a bad performance.
Right. I did think that it's not favorable, though. It's not a long-term solution, of course, for De Jong, and I'm not saying that Koeman thinks it is. However, he did it again in this past La Liga game where he puts De Jong in a center back position. We talked about De Jong a bit last week, and I think a key for this Barcelona team to start improving and getting better is for De Jong to play a more advanced attacking role where he likes to be. And it's just so unfortunate when he's in that center back position, because he really can't flourish defensively. I thought he was lucky because he wasn't really exposed all that much. Barcelona were also quite lucky in Morata's hat-trick of offsides. So VAR played a role, and to be quite honest, they got all the decisions, in my opinion, spot on. Alvaro Morata on the third goal didn't even celebrate. He took the ball and looked at the referee. He's like, "Is it a goal or not a goal? Because I want to celebrate. So can I celebrate or not?" And they all had to wait for VAR, and obviously he was offside again. Di Maria got a red card, and that just really deflated any comeback whatsoever. I thought Rabiot wasn't particularly a good performer, or not at his best, and he needed a better performance against a decent Barcelona midfield. I say decent because I thought Pjanic was subpar. I've been talking about this Busquets versus Pjanic, who should play in that defensive midfield role with De Jong. Pjanic had a terrible giveaway in the first half, a square ball right across his 18-yard box that could have resulted easily in a 1-0 scoreline for Juventus. Had some odd one-touch giveaways, but ultimately, Barcelona still gets the job done. A struggling team, a struggling club right now. I read an article that they could potentially go bankrupt by January. You'll have to fact check me on that. I'll send it over to you guys, but that's not good news whatsoever. And then finally, 2-0. A silly challenge, it has to be said, from Bernardeschi on Ansu Fati, and then they give the PK. He gives the PK away, and Messi just slots it home. And you can't make contact if I'm Bernardeschi and Fati's running in front of me. You cannot make physical contact with him once he's in front of you. I would have rather let him take a shot at Szczesny from a wider angle. Do you agree, Chris?
Lately, you got to trust your keeper in those situations, right? I mean, that's why keepers get the big bucks.
Absolutely. So, I think Griezmann was a little better, slightly better. I don't know really what to make of his performance right now. Dybala was frustrated. It has to be said that Koeman did get it right, although it was unorthodox. I thought overall Barcelona were the better side, and they deserved to win. What would you have done differently, though, Scott, if you were Pirlo in this situation? How would you have approached this game?
That's a great question. I think you're right. Koeman did get it spot on, and quite frankly, I think Barcelona was significantly better than Juventus. And one of the oddities of this game for me was that it seemed like both sides missed most of their best opportunities. And the goals that were scored, I mean, kind of weird, unfortunate plays. So when you look at Juventus's play, I thought they needed a little bit more on the wings. They really struggled to break through Barcelona's press. And it did seem like they were trying to force play through the middle, trying to engage, especially Rabiot. I just don't think those Juventus center midfielders were very comfortable playing through that press. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from Juventus on the wings. We know that Barcelona is especially aggressive on the wings. They'll pull the two fullbacks way up high. So that's really the best place to attack them. And especially when you had Lenglet on the pitch in the first half, why not go after him and make him try to defend in that left wing? So that's where, if I'm Pirlo, I'm changing it up a little bit. I think they were a little too slow and not prepared to take advantage of those transitional moments. Whereas Barca was ready. Juventus got caught out quite often, and Barcelona should have punished them a few times at the very least.
Absolutely. But great news for Barcelona. They got the job done against a really great club. And Chris, I think it just comes down to they were lucky Cristiano Ronaldo was not there. Because even if Juventus played poorly and they had Ronaldo in the lineup, I think it could have been way different. Moving on here to our La Liga recap. Real Madrid thumped Huesca 4-1. That's Huesca's second 4-1 thumping in the last week. Hazard was back in the lineup, and he scored a golazo of a left foot, Scott. What impressed you about this Real Madrid performance?
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Because right before that Hazard goal, I was critical of the performance because it was another very slow, very uninspiring performance until Hazard took it upon him to really start the party. But for those first 40 minutes, it was really difficult to watch. A lot of the same sluggish, structure. Again, Casemiro going way too high, no coverage behind him, and it left that back line exposed. So fortunately, they were playing Huesca instead of Gladback. But I think once Hazard really took the initiative to try to make something happen for himself, scored that absolute rocket, just beautiful bending shot away from the keeper. you got the sense that uh, that more goals were coming. So Benzema got his goal right before halftime. And then, it was a fairly easy second half for them. So, Huesca tried to get numbers forward, couldn't quite match up with Real Madrid, especially since Casemiro could then play a little bit more conservatively. But yeah, if I'm Zidane, it's probably those first 45 or 40 minutes that I'm really focusing on as the team prepares for a very good Inter Milan side. That's my big concern with this performance. So yeah, 4-1 result, great. We got some goals, but the performance in those first 40 minutes were really sluggish again.
Yeah, it's just really interesting because there's some really key individual performances that I think are really impressive for Real Madrid at the moment. Valverde is playing exceptionally well. I personally feel like he should be a starter 100% at this point. Casemiro's playing, a little bit under his potential, maybe for you quite a lot. I think Benzema is looking fantastic. He's starting off from that hot streak at like just like the end of last year, and then Hazard coming back and finding form. What I'm really thinking too is Real Madrid, they seem vulnerable defensively, like you said. However, how come they're able, to overcome those moments? Maybe this is just small bumps in the road early on before they really take this whole thing to another level where they become an unstoppable team in this league. Do you guys see that happening, or are these problems going to be repeated over the season for them?
I think my take is teams tend to play at the level of where their competition is. And I'm going to, I will say, I think La Liga competition overall is probably competitively as weak this year as it's been in memory, right? I mean, Scott, help me out. You're much more in tune with the history of this than I am, but I mean, so far they've scored 13 goals and they've given up 5. Only bested by Real Sociedad of 18-4. And I think all of us believe Real Sociedad is not going to be able to maintain this pace at all. So you've got Atletico, right, which is basically 13 goals, not same as Real Madrid, but they've only given up 2 goals. Now, part of that is what competition that's been played, but I just feel like Real Madrid is going to pull a Juve this year where they're going to be able to play at subpar and still continue to more or less win every game.
I think that's a really fair statement. Anything to add there, Scott?
It almost seems like Zidane is taking this little bit of leeway with Barcelona's results to kind of test out a few concepts. Hopefully he abandons that 4-1-4-1 press. It's not working. Doesn't look good. It's not producing any opportunities. And it takes away Casemiro and Ramos. That's the most important relationship on the pitch. But when you look at the level of play, Chris, yeah, I think that's 100% fair. The level has dropped off in the past few years. And yeah, in the end, I think Real Madrid does see this one out pretty comfortably. But for me, what is their Champions League performance going to look like? At this point, are they going to get out of the group stage? You would assume so. This is Real Madrid after all. But do we have another round of 16 or quarterfinal exit? That is a concern now, especially if they do finish second in the group and have a nightmare knockout round draw right away.
Definitely a lot to sort out there. Athletic Club Bilbao beat Sevilla 2-1 in a decent performance for Bilbao, but you have to say subpar performance from Sevilla. That makes it 3 losses in a row in La Liga, losing 1-0 against Granada, 1-0 against Eibar, and then 2-1 now against Athletic Club Bilbao. They did get that midweek win against Rennes, which we obviously previewed earlier. That was big for them. But fun fact, every defender on Sevilla got a yellow card in this game. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe that's just, you know, poor defending, or they're just out of place, out of position, so they have to, make fouls that they wouldn't normally have to make if they were well balanced. Maybe that's a decent point there. Munain with a big impact as well, scoring off the back post. Early on, Sevilla was looking decent, with an early goal. I think they thought they were in good shape, but later on, Sansei, at the back post, gets that goal, and that means Sevilla continues to struggle, and they're not far away from that relegation zone, Chris. Maybe they're going to be the ones relegated, not Valencia. Who knows? Atletico Madrid beat Osasuna 3-1. Felix, once again, 2 goals in exceptional form. He scores a PK and then gets another PK, but misses it. Finally, he gets his second on a counterattack with a brilliant finish, close control, and then smacks it into the right-hand corner of the goal. Oblak had another ridiculous highlight video save in this one. I have no idea how he stretched out and made this one. So just more of the same, really, from Atletico Madrid. It seems from the Champions League game against Salzburg, it seems like they're finding more consistency. Torreira got one late on as well. That should boost his confidence in that middle of the field. With Thomas Partey leaving as well. And like you said, Scott, it really was a beauty. Hopefully that will, increase his performance for this Atletico Madrid side. Budimir gets one in too, but a little too late, or not enough from Osasuna. Let's jump into Barcelona, Deportivo Alaves. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about the struggling Barcelona side. Painful, Scott. It's just really, really painful to be a Barcelona fan, which I obviously am at this time. Yeah, disappointing performance from Barca, especially coming off a big midweek win. Busquets' pressing stood out to me as quite insane. He would blindly step out of the defensive midfield as soon as they would lose the ball, I guess thinking about the 6-second press rule. The problem is he just can't get there. He can't cover that space anymore. I don't know if he really could earlier, but at least they had a system, where he wasn't so exposed. And I was just completely shocked at how easily Barcelona could get countered by an Alaves squad that is decent. And all due respect again to Alaves, last week we wrote this off as an easy win. We said Huesca, Real Madrid, easy win. Yeah, maybe not so much, but at the end of the day, the results, it looked like an easy win. Barca Alaves was absolutely not the case. I said maybe potentially easy win. No chance. This was a really tough matchup for them. Messi's free kick in the first half, ball falls to Busquets, clear opportunity to shoot, and he passes it to Griezmann, who doesn't pull the trigger. Just no one really taking accountability to put the ball in the back of the net. And there's a time where you can walk the ball into the goal. I think when you have, the confidence and you're scoring a ton of goals like the old Barcelona system was, and there's a time to just, take the shot. Come on. Like it was really frustrating, obviously, personally for me to watch this Barcelona team struggle so much. And I know, Chris, you got probably a lot to say about what happened with PK and Neto there. Gosh, a real big blunder.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I looked at it several times and after it happened, and my sense is that PK didn't do him any favors, right? But I would say maybe that's 20% or 30% of the fault. If you're a goalkeeper and you're playing in one of the top 5 leagues, you got to do one of 2 things. One is you better have good enough feet to be able to handle it standing in front of the goal from at that yardage. Or number 2, if you don't, you got to back up and or move to the left or right of the goal in case there's a bit of a mishap. So if you do get challenged or something goes wrong, you can dump it out over the end line. And I think I think was maybe a little bit too comfortable about things and saw a outrushing person, got caught under his feet, and that's clearly a goalkeeper error there. So certainly at least 80%, maybe 90%, and it's unfortunate, but that's the rules of the game, right? I mean, that's if keepers are going to play with their feet more and people are going to pass back, you're going to live and die by that sword. So unfortunate that it came down to that, but hey, hats off to the Alaves striker who he's probably made that run 19 times with like nothing to call. And this one time he gets a gift, and guess what? They tie the mighty Barcelona.
Absolutely. And what I didn't really understand about the Neto and PK play was why Neto started sprinting. If you watch initially, he actually really comes out of the six and starts sprinting really hard. And I think when he slows down is when PK makes the pass. Like you said, he should have the feet to absolutely, if he was to sprint, slow down and control the ball and play it. But I think he was kind of taken aback and surprised. First touch wasn't great. His feet weren't set yet. And I still don't get why he sprinted out because PK had it covered. I think maybe he wanted to grab it and secure it into his hands, and PK shields it off. Perhaps that was what he was thinking. But, regardless, I don't think there was ever a competition between Neto and Ter Stegen for Neto to potentially have a spot. That's completely not even, being asked with Ter Stegen coming back hopefully soon. Maybe that could change something for this Barcelona squad. Jota gets a red card, but that ultimately didn't do a whole lot in terms of Barcelona finding the back of the net. They had a couple good chances, it has to be said. Griezmann finally gets a well-worked goal. Great chip, but he still just doesn't look like himself. He doesn't look really confident within this Barcelona system. And maybe it's just down to playing with Messi, and he's just unable to, he wants to occupy the space that Messi is occupying, because you see that's what happened with the France team. And now he has to go somewhere else, and Messi is always in that space in the central of the field where Griezmann, I think, thrives. So perhaps a little bit better again from Griezmann, but it's not enough. Dest almost scored right at the end. It has to be said, hats off to Alaves. They deserve a lot of credit for making this such a difficult game for Barcelona, but I think Barcelona did shoot themselves in the foot. And finally, De Jong, center back, once again, we saw it in the Juventus game. Really don't know what to make of it. I would almost prefer Sergio Roberto, Scott, to play center back. I think he could do a better job to keep De Jong higher up the pitch, and then put in Dest, or maybe Alba couldn't, last the whole game. That's why Dest came in. I understand. But I'd prefer a Sergio Roberto and a real defender to play back there so that we can see more of De Jong in his natural role and be more creative. He's really frustrated right now. You can tell.
Yeah, one thing that was odd with that move is that it really gave the sense that Koeman was just trying to pack the pitch with as many attacking players as he could. So, and to some degree that worked. Up until that red card in the 62nd minute for Jota, Barcelona had 8 shots. From that point to the end of the match, I think they had 17. So, they were pummeling the goal. And you could see that as the game progressed, and especially with Alaves down a man, Barcelona knew that they really didn't have many defensive responsibilities. Alaves couldn't get out. So, it's still, yeah, you're right. It's an odd decision to have him back there instead of Roberto. But, again, it does give you another deep-lying playmaker. I think if you're going to have to resign yourself to just deep distributions from either De Jong or Roberto, you're probably going with De Jong. So, maybe that's the thinking. Not really sure there. But Yeah, I mean, if you're Barcelona, you really have to be disappointed that you get 30 minutes at Alaves with 10 men and you still can't overcome that deficit. So, and Alex, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, they're really, between the two games this past week, there really does seem to be some hesitation from the attackers in Barcelona to really pull the trigger
Yeah.
in or near the box. It's almost like everybody wants to defer, and they want Messi to be the one to live with the consequences of
Right.
the shot.
Right. And it's really unfortunate too. The last point I'll say about Barcelona is I really haven't seen Messi look so. He just doesn't look like he's enjoying the game right now. He looks very frustrated, and it's quite sad, honestly, because when you see him play at his best, he's always focused. You got to give him that. He's always focused on the task, but he got a pretty, you know, debatable yellow card. I think that was a red for anyone else besides Messi, where he kicks the ball right next to the referee. If it's not Messi, I think it's for sure a red. And he just does not look fun. And look, he wanted to leave. He said he'll stay, and he's doing everything he can. But it's just really it's tough times. It's tough to watch. So hopefully, I don't know how they're going to turn that around. I don't have any solutions. I don't think the best, you know, soccer coaches, I think, and tacticians and analysts, even like us, have many solutions for this team. You know, it just seems like they're going where they're going, and nobody can really bring them out of that, especially with Messi in his later years.
It seems
We'll
deeper
have
than
to see.
tactics, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah. It seems very deep, their issues. So Real Sociedad, on the bright side, I don't think we sing their praises enough because they beat Celta Vigo 4-1 once again. They are scoring a ton of goals, Scott. They have the top scorer in Oyarzabal. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Is that how you say it? Oyarzabal?
You got it right there, Miguel.
There you go, Oyarzabal. They have a little magician in David Silva. William Jose up top scored 2 goals. What's making this Real Sociedad team tick? They have Januzaj off the bench, who has the best goals per minute average, I believe, in La Liga.
Yeah, um, we really saw them last season get into this type of a run right before the COVID suspension of play. Um, when they do attack, they tend to have a very indirect start to really try and unbalance opponents. But then when they go, they fly down the field.
Hmm.
They've got some speed up top. They've got like you said, David Silva, who's an absolute magician in the midfield. He's come in and he's given them the stability that they had last year with Martin Odegaard. Of course, I think after that return from play from COVID, Odegaard issue. So maybe that's where the downplay really went with Real Sociedad. But we've seen Silva really step in, and they're fun to watch right now. They're playing with a lot of joy.
Hmm.
So they're very strong in the middle. But then they've got those wide outlets. Typically one player managing the width of the pitch on either side, and so lets to that very quick direct attack on goal. So yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched Real Sociedad yet this season, you got to watch their matches, especially while they're on such a hot streak, because they are a very fun team.
Absolutely. And to finally preview, some of the La Liga matches coming up. We won't go too much into detail here because we want to really start talking about Real Madrid versus Inter, a massive matchup. Barca plays Real Betis, Atletico Madrid plays Cadiz, and Real Madrid plays Valencia. Chris, Scott, any games out of those three, or any teams that really stand out as potential upsets, or does this look like maybe Cadiz? They're in fourth place and they seem to be playing well, Scott. I don't know what to make of this week's matchups here. Betis could be a problem for Barcelona the way they're playing. I haven't really seen much of Cadiz play, but Atletico looks to be in great form. And Chris, Valencia's, they're going in relegation zone, so why should Madrid even care?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think this weekend is not necessarily spectacular, obviously, in terms of matchups. But I think that tired legs are during the week are going to make for some potential fireworks on the weekend. And I do think you've been hinting at the Betis Barca game that we'll kind of see how much energy and mojo they have. Let's hope that the existential angst of Barca does not cause its own undoing against Betis. I think Cadiz, they've scored 6 goals and they've given up 2. So hats off to them for them doing so well on that front. But I just feel like, 8 goals for and 6 goals given up. I just think that it's one of those early season wonders right there. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of action there. So I think it's one of those sort of La Liga's got 20 teams and everyone's got to play twice. And, let's see if there's a little bit of drama that the script writers share with us.
Watch out for that Cadiz matchup. So, they're not a side that really enjoys playing with the ball. They're actually a lot like Granada last year. They won't have much possession, but when they counterattack or when they have a set piece opportunity, they're dangerous. So this past weekend against Eibar, 15th place Eibar, Cadiz only managed 27% possession.
That's insane.
27%. All playing a team that's in that relegation area. So, they don't want the ball, but that's part of the formula. They're going to make the game very slow, very difficult for Atletico to progress, especially through the middle, through João Felix. And we'll see exactly how much Atletico wants to gamble and push numbers forward, because that's where Cadiz hurts you. If Atletico wants to wander the wings, watch out.
Man, 27%, that does not sound like much fun as a player. But hey, if you're a defender, maybe it is. You get more reps in. So, yeah. So, Champions League, big time game. Real Madrid versus Inter Milan. Chris, I know you're super excited for your man Lukaku to potentially make a big impact in this matchup. Scott, I know you're super excited, obviously, because you're a Madrid fan and they're doing pretty well right now. Let's go head to head here. What do you guys see happening in this game?
I'm going to be honest with you. Lukaku is out with a tear in his abdomen.
Oh, really?
So for some reason, Serie A has a way of becoming highly dependent on one scorer. And Lukaku is exactly that. I think Inter, they have a really well seasoned, well distributed age profile for their players, but if they don't have Lukaku's goals and they don't have his ability in which to hold up things, I don't rate them very high, to be honest with you. Just as if you took Ibra out of AC Milan or Ronaldo out of Juve, I just feel that Real is going to be able to grind this one out without a great deal of trouble. Scott, I'm happy for you to disagree with me on this.
Oh man, I wish I could. So for me, I think just because it is another one of Europe's traditional elites, we see Real Madrid show up a little bit. So I think from Real Madrid's perspective, that high press could be an issue. We could see Inter Milan pick them apart, and they've got some players, even without Lukaku, they still have Lautaro Martinez. They still have a few other quality players on the wings that can really do some damage. So to me, that's the biggest concern for Real Madrid. Otherwise, I expect them to have the ball. I think Inter will gladly concede it And um, yeah, I want to say a close game with maybe a 1 goal margin, probably in Real Madrid's favor.
I mean, there's some really key matchups in here that I'm just looking at some of the previews or potential lineups. I'd love to hear what your take is, Scott, on who you think will actually start for Madrid. I think we know, okay, Courtois, Varane, Ramos, that makes sense. Is it going to be Mendy on the right? Or are we going back to our man Lucas Vasquez on the right? What do you think?
I think it's got to be either Vasquez or Nacho.
It's going to be Vasquez or Nacho. And then does that mean Marcelo or Mendy goes in? And the reason why I asked this is you got a lightning quick star in Hakimi on the right-handed side, and that could cause a ton of trouble for Real Madrid. Obviously, he was previously with Real Madrid, right? And that could cause some problems if it's Marcelo who comes in, and he is the one who's bombing up the field, and they're playing that Inter Milan is playing that three-back system that turns into a five with Perisic and Hakimi being so fluid in those wide spots. I personally see this being potentially an issue for Madrid. They got a tough midfield in Vidal and Brozovic. That could be rough too for Casemiro, Cruz, and Valverde. But Casemiro probably is going to live up to his bruiser name, in this midfield and love the challenge. I'm excited for the battle. I think it's going to be a clash. Who do you think starts up top besides Benzema?
I think you have to go with Hazard if he actually is healthy. And then I'm really liking that Asensio and Valverde pairing on the right side.
Mhm.
So you can have Asensio pinch into the midfield, maybe play in the half space. And, if that frees up the wing for Valverde, who's, we got to be honest, his distributions from the wings have really improved this season. So I think that's the route they have to go. He does help them diversify the attack a little bit. So I think that's the starting lineup. At the back, I do think you need Mendy on the left-hand side for Hakimi. So that will be one of the key matchups for me. Hakimi, I think he's actually one of the 10 fastest players in world soccer.
Oh yeah, I'd put him up there.
Yeah, and I mean, if Mendy is great at any one thing, it's his recovery after that giveaway. So I think that will be crucial. So then, they have to gauge what do they do on that right-hand side. How much do they, I guess, anticipate the threat of Perisic coming from the left? Because, maybe that's where that you go with Nacho, someone who is maybe defense first. Or maybe you even go with Militao on that right-hand side. He did play that role a few times last season. And he's another guy who's very athletic, very good in his 1v1 defense.
Right.
I don't think Perisic would give him 1v1 issues.
Mm. So if Inter Milan does play a low block, well, first of all, do we expect them to play a low block against Madrid, or do you think they're going to really come out and give them a game?
Look for them to get numbers behind the ball, but maybe set a midfield line of confrontation. I don't think they'll necessarily settle into a low block, and I don't think they'll really have to. If you can get Real Madrid playing through a middle block, they will always look to play into one of the two wings.
Right.
And from there, it's easy enough to restructure your defense and make sure you shore up the middle to prevent any lanes to goal.
Right. I think the counterattack is going to be key for Madrid to clog up, and traditionally they are pretty good at that. Because personally, I do feel like Inter's will start to sit back a little bit, especially that's what naturally happens with a three in the back with potentially obviously five is the wing backs really cover that wide space, and it really just starts to look like a five. And then what happens a lot, or what could potentially happen, is if you have, like we're predicting here, Asensio and Hazard, I don't think they're going to stay out wide too much. I think they're going to actually come in to the spots where the center backs, one of the three center backs, has to step out. And, that could cause a lot of space for Benzema to run into, as his movement has been, like we've said, exceptional as of late. I think one way to unlock this Inter Milan side too is through Valverde. He's just a different type of midfielder. He seems like he's this, little bit deeper, not traditional attacking mid, but all of a sudden he's got this explosiveness about him where he can break that three in the midfield, and all of a sudden he's running at the three center backs, and let's say one of them's occupied with either Asensio or Hazard, then Benzema's open, or the other side, flip side, if it's Hazard tucking in, maybe Asensio's open, or maybe
Yeah,
it's an overlap.
yeah, and Alex, I mean, on that point, if you look at that left-hand side for Inter, if that's Perisic playing that left winger role, he's
Right.
probably not dropping back quite as far as Hakimi is. So
True.
it is an asymmetric back line. And the guy that I would expect to play that left center back role for Inter is Kolarov, who's a little bit up there in years.
Right.
So that really could be a real target for Real Madrid in this match. I would really go after that left-hand side and try and pin Perisic back as far as I can and make sure that he has to come back in support of Kolarov.
Great point.
I'm inclined to agree. Kolarov has got a big red bullseye on his chest. He's been targeted by a lot of teams. Without Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez is injured, right? So that means Eriksen may be either in play as a starter or at least get 20 minutes or so.
Right.
You've got Stefano Sensi, a central midfielder that's been out for 3 games, has got muscular problems. And then you've had Vecino, Matias Vecino, who's been out for 19 matches in the central midfield. So, I think those central midfielders have somewhat compromised the defensive success of Inter, and the number of goals that they've had scored on them reflect that. But I just feel like without the venom, the mid block is kind of what their go-to is, and their first look up was to Lukaku, right? And now they're going to have to work with an Eriksen or a Lautaro or work it up through the wings. And I just feel that Real Madrid's just got the quality to kind of shut this down. As much as I am an Inter fan, I'm a realist.
You are, right. And last thing, clash of the massive goalkeepers in Handanovic versus Courtois, 6'4" against 6'6". Chris, what do you make of it? These
I will
monster
tell you,
goalkeepers.
Serie A loves big goalkeepers. Donnarumma is no little. He's a little 6'4", 21-year-old himself. So they like him big down there.
For sure. Massive game. It's going to be super exciting. I think as we can tell from us breaking it down, I'm looking forward to it. For me, it's on the calendar as match of the week. FC Barcelona takes on Dinamo Kiev. Atletico Madrid takes on Lokomotiv. And Sevilla takes on, let me pronounce this right, Krasnodar. Is that how you say it?
That's it.
Decent there. I'm getting better. Lots to look forward to. Gentlemen, thank you so much. That wraps up today's episode. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Total Football Analysis La Liga podcast. A big thank you to Chris and Scott for your fantastic insights today. We would also like to thank Total Football Analysis Solutions. Go check out www.totalfootballanalysis.com. They are the world's largest open source soccer analyst community. See you next week, and hasta luego.